love story between Alice Walker and Tracy Chapman is one of the greatest lesbian stories of all time. It's one of the most beautiful ones ever told. And even though it happened in the 90s, it's continued to fascinate people for decades, even up to this day. The love affair between them was tender, passionate, and mysterious, but the breakup was toxic and ended badly. So what happened? Let's get into it. So Alice wrote The Colour Purple. That's what she's most known for, but she's written many other books as well. She was one of 8 children, born to her parents, hard-working sharecroppers in the difficult environment of the Deep South. Now, when Alice was 8, she was playing outside with one of her siblings who had a BB gun. Unfortunately, he misfired and it shot her right in the eye. Now, not wanting to get her brother in trouble, Alice lied about what happened. She recounts the event. By the time the truth came out, it was too late to save the sight in that eye. I remember sitting on the porch, watching the blood cover the tree I was looking at. That's the last thing I saw out of my right eye. Alice was born in 1944, so she was actually 20 years older than Tracy Chapman. Tracy, on the other hand, the Grammy winner and the original OG who wrote Fast Car, was born in Cleveland, Ohio in 1964. Like Alice, she had a rough childhood. When she was 4, her parents divorced, at which point her mum bought her a ukulele. The rest, as we know, is musical history. Tracy got bullied because she was black, but this didn't hinder her love for education, country, and folk music. While she was at uni, she played guitar at coffee bars and clubs, and eventually got signed to Elektra Records, thanks to a friend who hooked her up. Alice has admitted that she first fell for Tracy after hearing Fast Car. And who can blame her? I mean, that song is beautiful. It's a treasure to all of us. Like that song lives in the heart. Alice said, "Her voice is so precious. I fell in love with her. How could I not? We were together for 2 years. Then she went on the road and left me with a beautiful black Labrador." After falling for her, Alice wrote in her journal about those early days and how they first got together. In 1992, she wrote, "Before leaving on this tour, I had dinner with Tracy Chapman. She arrived in jeans and boots, carrying a coffee cake she baked herself. We ate pasta and salad and talked for 5 hours. This and many other journal entries about their romance can be found in Alice's book, Gathering Blossoms Under Fire, The Journals of Alice Walker. So despite the 20-year age gap, the relationship lasted for 2 years. Now, Tracy Chapman's always been very private. She doesn't give interviews, and she's never spoken about their relationship, except for in a song, and that was about the breakup. We'll get into that very shortly. But when talking to The Guardian back in 2008, Alice was asked why it was kept so quiet, to which she replied, "It was quiet to you maybe, but that's because you didn't live in our area." In that same interview, despite saying she didn't want to discuss her private life, the interviewer mentioned Tracy and the fact that people were still obsessed with their relationship, and Alice's face lit up. She reminisced on that time in her life, saying, "Yeah, I loved it too, absolutely, and it was delicious and lovely and wonderful, and I totally enjoyed it, and I was completely in love with her. But it wasn't anybody's business but ours." The two shared their love of art, poetry, and literature. Chapman mentioned she grew up reading books and she loved education. And then, of course, there was the music. Now, Alice is a Pulitzer Prize winning author, and Tracy is a 4-time Grammy winner and the first black woman in history to enter the Country Hall of Fame. Both are big on humanitarian work and have done a lot for African causes, as well as human rights across the world. So when asked why they didn't use their relationship to make a big social impact, she said, "I would never do that. My life is not to be somebody else's impact." And yet, it has been, without them even trying. Now, we need to get into why they broke up, and this might surprise you because it gets messy. So Alice has one daughter, Rebecca. She's in her 50s today. She's married with a son. She also identifies as bisexual. Rebecca has written many books about how she felt neglected by her mother and felt unloved growing up. Now, apparently, her mother, Alice Walker, seduced Tracy Chapman away from her. Yes, it does look like Rebecca lost Tracy Chapman to her own mother. Scandalous. And when she learned about them getting together, she was devastated. But Tracy seemed to make a gesture of goodwill by giving Rebecca $60K to invest in her own business, an internet cafe. $60K back then was a lot more than it is today, and this was when Tracy had just blown up, so she was just money bags. But when Alice and Tracy broke up, that's when things changed. The breakup was toxic and ugly, and to reflect that, Tracy wrote this song. She named the song Telling Stories, which is very apt for a novelist, don't you think? There is fiction in the space between the lines on your page of memories. Write it down, but it doesn't mean you're not just telling stories. This next part was a bit brutal. There is fiction in the space between you and reality. You will do and say anything to make your everyday life seem less mundane. Now this next verse is even more brutal. A fabrication of a grand scheme where I am the scary monster. Now it's definitely fair to say that Alice had some mental health issues, which would have affected her relationships with people around her. First of all, her daughter, which is very obvious in the fact that her parenting style was detached, and also, in her love life, as we can see, she did fabricate things, and Tracy wasn't happy about that. And the fact that she had low self-esteem for years due to her damaged eye. It seems this manifested itself in quite a toxic way in Alice. Even her daughter has called out her narcissism throughout the years, and it does seem to match up with what Tracy was saying in the song. In an interview with the Daily Mail, Rebecca said, "A good mother is attentive, sets boundaries, and makes the world safe for her child. But my mother did none of those things. I came very low down in her priorities. After work, political integrity, self-fulfillment, friendships, spiritual life, fame, and travel." Eesh. So after Tracy released that song, the next thing that happened was all over Brooklyn. Tracy pulled the money out of Rebecca's internet cafe and got marshals to come and seize equipment and put a notice on the door. Tracy then filed a lawsuit, which she won, which resulted in the local sheriff's office putting a padlock on the door of the premises. After this, Tracy auctioned off all the cafe's contents to satisfy the loan. Rebecca's then girlfriend wrote a letter cussing Tracy out and pinned it on the door of the abandoned shopfront. Scandalous. Now around this time, or sometime after that, Rebecca famously hooked up with the singer Michelle Degiacello, and apparently she was just a rebound from Tracy Chapman. I'll do a separate video on Rebecca because there's a lot to unpack there. And if you're curious about the orientation of these two, Tracy is lesbian and has only ever dated women. She's currently in a relationship with Guinevere Turner and has been for the past 10 years or so. And for those who don't know, Guinevere Turner is the woman who wrote American Psycho. Yes, that American Psycho with Christian Bale. She was also a writer and editor on The L Word and had a recurring role. Alice, on the other hand, says, "I'm not straight, I'm not bi, I'm not lesbian, I'm curious." Before writing The Color Purple, Alice Walker had never been with a woman. Her first lesbian relationship with photographer Jean Weisinger came in her 50s. She said, "It was wonderful and very easy." Now, the last we heard, she was in a relationship with a man called Kaleo, a musician. She says she and Kaleo are kind of married and claims she is friends with all her ex-partners, saying, "Why wouldn't I be?" Somehow I think Tracy might disagree with that one, but given her privacy, maybe we'll never know. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and follow for more.